This conference will now be recorded.
Thank you, Terry. So we're going to call the meeting to order. And I'm going to ask at this time if there are any additions to the agenda. Okay, hearing none, I'm going to ask for a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Excuse me, Your Worship. Councillor McQuarrie had asked to that strategic plans be addressed at this meeting, and I neglected to put that on the agenda. So, and I haven't discussed that with Councillor McQuarrie yet. So, if we wish to add that, and maybe Councillor McQuarrie can indicate if he wishes to add that or not.
Sure. Thank you, Terry. Deputy Mayor McQuarrie, would you like to add that at this time?
Yes, Your Worship. In
Sure.
terms of Marine Innovation Center and the Waterfront Strategic Plan, just update on where the documents are.
Sure, that sounds great. We can certainly, I guess, Terry, can we add that under Cio Reports?
Yes, we can.
Perfect.
Thank you, Terry.
Okay, so I would ask for a motion to approve the agenda with the one amendment.
Move to approve as amended.
Okay, thank you, Councillor McDougall. Do we have a seconder?
Second.
Okay, seconded by Councillor Coyne. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded? Okay, the agenda is approved with the one amendment. So we do have two gallery presentations this evening. The first gallery presentation is with regard to Wall of Fame, and I will hand the floor over to John Davis and Councillor Huey McDougall. Welcome, John, and happy to have you with us. And we, anyway, just making sure, John, are you with us here this evening?
I'm right there.
There you are. Okay, so I'm going to, perfect. I am going to turn things over to you for your presentation with Councillor McDougall. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship. The presentation is based on the late submission that we were able to get delivered to you earlier today, and thanks to Huey and Michelle, we did get it out following our meeting yesterday, which was rescheduled this time of COVID, and because of work commitments and other types of things, and it wasn't my work. So basically, I want to start by thanking the Mayor and Council for all of their support that they've given us over the years. And we had assistance from the town staff in preparing this and in our meeting yesterday. And we especially want to thank those who took time and the interest to send in nominations. I'd like to also acknowledge the fellow committee members, my fellow committee members here, and their tremendous interest in our community and in sports in our community. They willingly shared their opinions and their suggestions, and they took a very active part in going through the nominations that we had. We started off with a timeline, and we started by our first thing was our press release, and we worked through that through a few meetings over the summer, and we gathered the submissions for the Wall of Fame, and then we reviewed them. And our timeline is mostly on track right up until the installation date of November 14th. And we started with the publicity, press releases to the media, and ads, and information on the websites. And in the end, we decided to recommend three individuals, one athlete and two builders. And we suggest that the format of the ceremony be the same as in the past. And our decisions were made. Basically, we took the nomination forms and studied them to make sure that they were complete and that they had relevant information and relevant supporting documents and a picture of the person who was being nominated, suitable for an artist's interpretation. And we took a look and considered whether the contribution at sport was at the local, provincial, Atlantic, national, international levels, and whether or not it was actually outstanding. And does the candidate meet the guidelines for induction in Port Hawkesbury? And does the committee have consensus? So the committee did arrive at consensus, and I'm sure that Huey did his part in advising of the people that we wish to have inducted in 2021. Huey, that's my report, and if you wish to add anything, I see your name is on there. And,
Through you, your worship, and yes, we did. I did have a little conversation with council, Mr. Davis, and I too, your worship, would really like to thank the committee, and especially like to thank Mr. Davis as our chair. The work he's done has been unbelievable. Looking in newspapers and making phone calls and going to visit people, and it's just unbelievable the work that's been done. And I want to mention Mr. Sturmey also, Mr. Roy Sturmey is on the committee, very informed of all the sports that has been going on from the last number of years in the town. Mr. Roy Dobson, another fellow that's been involved with sports in the town for years. Mr. Terry McDonald is on our committee. Unbelievable with sports. I remember playing baseball with him when I was 14 years old, and he was one of the stars then. And Miss Paula Davis, obviously, she's been around since, well, I'm not going to say too much. Everybody knows Paula. And I will be remiss if I didn't say Michelle Farrell, all the work she done to keeping us in line and keeping us informed with everything was just unbelievable. So the dates, I think John gave the dates. I think it's a Sunday and it's at 2 o'clock on the 14th, is it, Mr. Davis? And I'm sure that all council will be invited, and you'll have a heads up on what happens. If John got anything else to add, go ahead.
Thank you, Huey. We'd like to proceed beginning from tomorrow and get things started. And we have a bit of time before the 14th. As you can tell, it's about a little over, well, pretty near 2 months away, but there's a lot of work to do in preparation to get ready for this event, and we wish to start now. So with council's blessing, we will proceed.
Thank you. Thank you very much. At this time, I would open up the floor for any questions or comments from council. Councillor Coyne.
Thank you, through you, your worship, to John Davis, Councillor Huey McDougall, and the committee. Just want to thank everybody for the work that they do. I think it's important that we recognize people within our town and the contributions they've made. And it's really nice to see the Wall of Fame the way it is now and see some more pictures going up. And especially in the builder category. As a coach myself, you never get into stuff like this for that reason. But it is nice to see people getting acknowledged for what they put into sport, and the athletes for performing as well as they did. So just a simple thank you to everybody involved.
Thank you, Jason. Appreciate that.
Thanks, Jay. Appreciate it.
Any other questions or comments from council at this time?
Your worship, I just, again, just as Councillor Coyne said, just congratulate the committee for moving forward with this. And I'm sure you had some challenging deliberations to choose the folks that you have identified. And it's nice to hear that you've got a date set, and look forward to November 14th.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Blaine.
Right.
Councillor McIver, do you have any comments or questions?
Yes, Your Worship. Also, just to reiterate, as the Deputy Mayor and Councillor O'Coin has said, thank you very much for all your hard work. And I know over the years you've put a lot of time into this, and it's quite successful and great for the town. So thanks, John and Huey and the committee.
And I guess just going last, I echo council's compliments to the entire committee. And I guess some of our gallery members may be wildly curious as to the inductees. So maybe Councillor McDougall, you can kind of explain the process a little bit, and when the time would occur that we would release the information to the public with regard to who our inductees will be.
Sure, Your Worship. Thank you. Well, the process, like Mr. Davis said, he took all the information. We narrowed it down to 3 people, and we don't want to make the announcement tonight of the 3 people because we just made the decision at our last meeting, which was yesterday. And historically, what we do is the mayor calls them up and surprises them and tells them that you were successful, your nomination was successful, and you're going to be inducted into the Wall of Fame on a certain date, which is going to be November 14th. And hopefully they'll be excited about it. And that's why we're not releasing any names this evening. And just one question from the mayor and council and from Mr. Davis. Do we need any, we don't make motions in committee of the whole, but do we just need a consensus or something going forward to ratify the whole process, I guess? Or do you want to just...
I think that's correct, Councillor McDougall. So council, with council support, it's just a simple ratification at our next public meeting. And I think that council is supportive of the decision and very supportive of the work that the committee has done. And we congratulate you on narrowing a nomination to 3 people and accepting those nominations. And I guess just a quick question to John. I guess I assume that the process is probably going to be a press release once all of the inductees are contacted and that sort of thing, just so we make sure we put the horse ahead of the cart instead of the other way around.
That's right, Your Worship. We hope to meet with you as soon as possible, as soon as your agenda permits, and get started. And I think Huey was looking for clarification about whether we can begin tomorrow, the next day, or we have to wait until later. But
yeah, no, absolutely. So I don't think if there's no issues from council, I think that the process can probably start tomorrow. Council is okay with that?
Yes, Your Worship.
Yes, Your Worship.
Perfect.
Absolutely.
Looks like everyone's on board. John?
Your Worship, just a question. I just want to know that there may be some people in the audience that may want to ask you a question about this, because it's like Mr. Davis said, there's press release going out, but there might be some press here now that we could get some PR also.
No, absolutely. Yeah, typically the press release would go out to most of our local media, and certainly if once that information is made available, they can certainly, I'm assuming, contact, I guess, John, you would be the rep to contact for Sports Hall of Fame committee as a chair, and certainly I can make myself available for questions, and once that information is ready to go to the public.
Certainly, Your Worship, and some of that can be done through Michelle at the town office.
Absolutely. So if there is some time that you would like to get together or have a phone call or a Zoom call at all, John, tomorrow or Thursday, I certainly will make myself available for that.
That's fine, and I'll be in touch.
That sounds great. Any other questions from council with regard to this presentation? Thank you, everyone. And thank you, John, and thank you, Councillor McDougall. Our next presentation this evening is on an update and a presentation from our Economic Development Committee. And with us today, we have Kevin McCachran. And Kevin, is Ian with us this evening as well?
Ian is here beside me.
Oh, there you are. Thank you so much to both of you for making yourself available to give an update and presentation to council with regard to the wonderful work that's been done to date with regard to our Economic Development Committee. And at that, I will turn things over to you for the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Brenda, council, Terry, staff, and gallery guests. Thank you for this opportunity to speak to you about this major development. Go to my first slide, please. So, as we all know, that Brizo Energy had two newspaper articles in the past 2 weeks describing his project. He made a presentation, I know, to council probably early spring, and also was brought up to our committee to look at this. So the very first thing that we figured we needed to do was not just learn about Brizo's project, but to actually figure out, is this really a true story for Nova Scotia? Next slide, please. Is this offshore wind a true opportunity for Nova Scotia? And the fact of the matter is, the globe is going through a major paradigm shift. And that is, even in Nova Scotia, they made an announcement, and it's been verified by the current government, that there is a major shift to renewables by 2030. I'm not going to go through all the information that's on the slides. That's for you to look at later on. But this is a huge piece for Nova Scotia. And why we're saying this, and you got to think about it this way. The energy potential for Nova Scotia in the offshore would be similar to what Alberta has for oil. The only difference between Nova Scotia and Alberta is that our resource is renewable. It's not going to go away. So I want you to think about that piece as I go through the slides. My comrade here, Ian, will go through a couple of pieces as well with you. So we can go to the next slide, please, and we'll sort of talk about what's going on. So when you talk about offshore energy and windmills, it's not just producing electricity. It's actually generating the power to create hydrogen and ammonia. And you ask, why are those so important? It's because electricity is going to be the main driver of power in the future. But the issue is, how do you store the power, and then how do you transform the power, transmit the power from one area to another? The other thing you got to realize too is that different parts of the globe cannot use electricity the way other places can. For instance, here in the northern climates, an electric car in the middle of winter, if you have to heat that vehicle as we do here in the wintertime, it's going to really reduce the capacity of the batteries. So the whole shift is that you see on that slide right there is actually moving from carbon-based generation to renewables. Next slide, please. So Ian's going to take on this piece and talk about our assets.
Thank you, comrade.
You're welcome.
I'm definitely not an offshore wind expert by any means, but I did spend a better part of 2.5 decades in the offshore petroleum, sport of the offshore petroleum. And I was able to reach out to some former colleagues, actually the 2 separate Canadian companies who are working in support of offshore wind in European waters today. And I was fascinated to see what a real industry it is, not being acquainted with it in my work history or in our waters, because it's just not happening today, at least on the east coast of North America. But I can assure you that it is a big energy producer and a big economic driver in the marine sectors and for ports in the North Sea. Strait of Canso is not new to energy projects. On the Point Upper side of the strait, we have coal-fired power plant, which is importing coal from Colombia and Baltimore. And we have other energy projects like the former refinery, which is storage and blending for refined and crude product. We accommodate crude carriers, product carriers on a regular basis. We just had the fractionation plant closed, which has remains a viable pipeline for compressed gas. Is another asset we have in the strait. We also have wind energy in the Bear Head region. So energy projects aren't new to the Strait of Canso region. However, offshore wind is new, and from what I'm learning, there's a hand in glove. And whatever we are, the hand or the glove, we match up with what the requirements are for offshore wind. So, you know, the potential is amazing. There is some encumbrances at the moment, present moment, which might be a Conrad will talk more about, but one of them is legislation. And I'll pass that.
Yeah, sure. So next slide. So you just think about, Ian just mentioned the whole thing about the Sable energy, and I can remember, as a lot of people on this call can remember how big that was when it was first announced that this huge Sable offshore thing was going to occur into Nova Scotia and bring such great wealth to Nova Scotia. Well, this potential is bigger than that. And we'll get to those pieces later on, but that's what's really important. And one of the reasons why we're here tonight is to let you know what are the things that we need to look at going forward. The most important thing that we need to be aware of and to work towards getting it fixed is right now there is no regulatory framework in Nova Scotia to actually deal with the offshore wind potential. The other thing that we need to be aware of is that with the great announcement of Nova Scotia wanting to go to 80% renewable energy production by 2030, that means the coal-fired generating plant here in Point Tupper, as well as the two in CBRN, will be coming offline. So the question there is, what are they going to do about generating that power? Yes, we can import the power from other generating stations, but is that something that we as Nova Scotians and as council here want to have us importing power where there's this huge potential for generating power off in the offshore? So here are a couple of next steps, and these were not developed by myself and Ian over a beer. These were actually given to us, okay, by industry officials. One that I want to bring up right now is Scott Erkhert. He's originally from Dundee. He's been in the offshore wind energy in Denmark for the past 15 years. He is a well-known to a few people. His father used to work at the mill. Smart young man, so he's the one who actually gave us all this information. We talked to a few others. So sort of the demo project here, this is part of Ivan's, but also this came from Scott as well, as how do we get to 2030 when we want to be able to turn off the coal power plants? So that sort of tells you the timeline of where we are to start this wind power project. So you see the timeline is pretty close. Next slide, please. So this is why we're coming to council tonight, to actually move, if we can, this file forward. And these two graphs are very important because that sort of shows you where this whole piece of wind is. So you see we're right in our infancy of using offshore wind. The next slide will also show you why Nova Scotia is so important. And this information came from Scott. So as you see, there's a bunch of ovals on the map. The red is for floating wind opportunity and the black is for fixed bottom. So there are two types of offshore wind, and most of the pictures you would see globally, you know, around the world, especially the North Sea, are the offshore wind, and those are fixed bottom units. One of Ivan's pitches is a floating unit. And so you'll see up around the eastern seaboard that the eastern seaboard is one of the best locations, okay, globally for producing both offshore floating and fixed bottom wind. And the reason for that is because of the consistent winds are out there, but also the wind speeds. We'll go to the next slide while I talk about this. And here's some more information that you can look at as we go forward. So the key about the offshore wind, it's not just making power. As I said earlier, it has to do with producing hydrogen and ammonia. And actually, if you think about it this way, in the future, hydrogen and electric cars will replace all gasoline cars. As I mentioned to you earlier about this climate, the last thing we want to be doing is filling up our vehicles or charging our vehicles all day long. The concept of hydrogen here would work similar to the way we run our vehicles now. We go to a hydrogen pump, we pump it into our vehicle. You all heard of the hydrogen fuel cell, and that's what would actually drive our vehicles the other piece is the technology is there to actually run major generating stations, either using ammonia or hydrogen. And ammonia is probably going to be the fuel of the future for the marine industry. Next slide, please. Is this me or you next? So again, if you look at the map, you'll see, and the graph on the right-hand side shows you where Nova Scotia is compared to other places on the globe for that really good, consistent wind energy required in developing the offshore. And that's what's key about this and why industry is now looking at this area. And it's not just Ivan. Scott mentioned to us that are talk with him just last week, there are other major industry officials looking at this area. Next slide, please. And this really shows you off of Nova Scotia. On the left-hand side is the fixed bottom location. So you see the thing about fixed bottom, they are going to be inshore. So there are some concerns, okay, how that'll affect the fishery. There'll be a lot of work done with that. But if you look on the right-hand side, that's the really floating wind. And there are numbers there. So if you think about this, the total capacity of both fixed and offshore wind is 900 gigawatts. And you're saying, what does that mean? Nova Scotia right now needs about 3.2 gigawatts. So you think of that major energy potential. So we could use all the energy we would need in the offshore, then be able to export all the extra energy either through the Atlantic Energy Hub, the electric hub, sorry, or having these windmills, this is part of Ivan's technology as well as others, convert the energy to hydrogen or ammonia and then ship it worldwide. Next slide, please. You're up again.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin. Everybody here will recognize that. That's the Strait of Canso. On the mainland side, you're all aware there's good deep water to the shore, lots of greenfield property. Some of it's already been expropriated for development in the Milford area, as well as on the Cape Breton side in the Port Malcolm area, as well as remaining unused land in the former industrial estates of Bearhead Point Upper, which was set up for heavy industrial development in the Premier Stanfield government way back in the day. But I think you guys are all well acquainted with the Strait of Canso and its capability, but once again, it suits well with what we have learned are requirements for offshore wind and its support. But, you know, we've met a lot of different industrial players, both commercially and demonstrators. One interesting thing we learned from demonstration energy projects by way of not wind, but tidal in Nova Scotia, is that there's major, in addition to clean energy, in their demonstration projects, which many have never made it to grid or commercialization, the economic spin-off in Nova Scotia and abroad is tremendous, just in the demonstration phases, let alone when they finally reach commercialization, this beautiful green energy. Just one further thing to Kevin's comments regarding, you know, when you think of windmills, we think of a turbine generating electrons to a cable and off to the grid and electrical grid work. Some additional support that would be needed for hydrogen is shuttle tankers, and that's another method of exporting the hydrogen created by the wind energy to market. So there's the potential for this new emerging green energies phenomenon.
Yeah, it's huge. And the other person that Ian was speaking with, his name is Tony Wright. He's from Port Hawkesbury. His parents are, of course, Sandy and Vivian Wright. So he's been involved in the tidal research for a long time. And to add that piece of not just the economics for here, but as Ian mentioned, research would be huge. And this would be a great opportunity for your innovation research center that you're planning on doing on the waterfront. There's a lot of things that are tying into this possibility for the town Next slide, please. And again, these are just want to reiterate the whole idea about the stages. So part of what we're doing here tonight is to tell you that, you know, this Breezo project and other projects, you know, are real here. And we can flip to the next slide. And here is a document which we received a few weeks ago, dealing with, and this company, what they do is they do projections out to let industry know where are things going. I know it may look small on your screen, but it's rather huge to look at. So I encourage you to look at your documents that were sent to you. And what this does is it shows, here we are, roughly 2020. You'll see the dip right at the middle of the screen there. That's COVID. That shows you the drop of energy when COVID hit. And then after that dip, you see it going back up. So the very top of it, you can barely see it in 2020, but as you reach out to 2050, and the number that's used is, it's an energy number. But you see how the wind energy is growing exponentially as we go forward. And that's because they see at the bottom, you see coal and oil, the demand for them drops. And then also you see other pieces of natural gas, other pieces of green energy. So you just think about that, the great potential of that piece. In the bottom graph on that page is the demand. So you've actually noticed that after roughly 2030, 2040, demand for energy is actually going to sort of peak. That's because what they're saying is the technology in the machinery we will use will exponentially improve so much that humans may not need extra energy. But what's interesting, you see how it's being sent. Electricity is growing dramatically. You see the drop off in coal, oil, and gas. So that's that piece. And in there, you will see supply of different pieces. Next slide, please. Oh, yeah, there we go. So this one here is another one of these pieces just showing how there is a growth. And you'll see the very top, you can't see a lot of it, but again, you see where floating demand is going to go up. You'll see fixed offshore wind and also onshore wind. So that's going to be a huge potential for Nova Scotia. So as you can see from these slides and the information we showed you, that this is going to be huge. There's still going to have to be a lot of work done. We know right now the province of Nova Scotia is sort of looking at this. The only issue is the regulatory bodies are unsure if it's necessary for Nova Scotia to even do this piece. And so without the regulatory process being announced and Nova Scotia actually saying is we're going to look into the research and promote this piece, then the world and the global leaders who are looking at Nova Scotia right now are going to say, well, we'll go somewhere else. So the issue we have right now is that the bureaucrats in the government, they're looking at how do we just replace the carbon-based production for Nova Scotia. They don't see this yet as an economic opportunity. We've had a chance to talk to a number of politicians from the Strait area the past number of weeks to educate them about this piece. We're hoping to do more through your council, but that's going to be the first step. So this is the main message we're making to council tonight. Number one, this is a major opportunity for not just for Hawkesbury, the Strait area, Cape Breton, and Nova Scotia. And also we need to work with the other levels of government to educate them to see this and to make an announcement that Nova Scotia wants to do this. Because I can tell you right now, by talking to industry people, there are a lot of major global players who want to come to Nova Scotia. And at that, I want to say thank you and answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Kevin and Ian. And I just want to start by commending the both of you and other members of our Economic Development Committee for a brand new committee. You know, just the amount of work and research that's been done to date is extraordinary. And, you know, certainly I know that we've had the opportunity at our Economic Development Committee to have Ivan come and present. And I know there was a desire at the Economic Development Committee at that point to, you know, to try to build capacity and understand this opportunity around offshore wind, and to kind of do our homework, so to speak, so that, you know, we are prepared for the overarching opportunity, and that we can better understand the project that Brizo is presenting to us, and that has been supported by council. So thank you very much for the work that you have done to date on behalf of council. And with that, I would like to open up the floor for any questions at this point with regard to the information that's been presented.
No other work is recording at a split on that.
Hey, Councillor Coyne.
Through your worship, Kevin and Ian, not really a question, just a comment, and echo what the mayor just said. Thank you for all the time and effort you and the committee have put into this. And like the mayor stated, we did have some presentations from Ivan and gave him a letter of support, and we support this project 100%. And it'd be nice to see something big like this come to the area. But again, Kevin and Ian, thanks for tonight. It was pretty informative. Learned some things I didn't know already. Thanks.
Yeah, Deputy Mayor McCrory.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Kevin and Ian. Thanks for the presentation. I know when council was, I guess, initially approached by Ivan, which would have been, I guess, in January, we were all quite taken with his project and his proposal, and we have been working with Ivan, and we have been very supportive of this initiative all along. But it's good to see that your committee is involved in taking this up as well. So that's really positive. I just wanted to ask, Kevin, you made a comment about, you know, you want to see where the council can help things move forward. So can you talk to that anymore?
Yeah, sure. We've started working with NSBI and some other government stakeholders. So at some point, you know, there needs to be engagement with the local MLAs and ministers to ensure that, you know, they see the value in this. You know, we know that, you know, there are a number of departments provincially and federally that are going to either make this or break this through the work that they have to do, because at the end of the day, Councillor McCrory, is that if there is not an announcement at some point in the near future, you know, that Nova Scotia wants to get into offshore wind, it's not going to happen, because the regulatory framework itself is going to take anywhere between 3.5 to 5.5 years. So if you just think about that film that I showed you there about the time frame, right? Right now we're in the fall of 2021. Even if they announce the spring of 2022 that they are going to get into offshore wind development and research and development in the framework, if you have to add 5.5 years, now that being said, some of this work can be done, you know, concurrently with that, you know, we're then into, you know, 2027. And so the issue is, if we're looking at using this offshore wind to augment the 2030 replacement of all the, you know, carbon-based burning of fuel for electricity, we may have missed that opportunity if Nova Scotia does not make that announcement within the next 6 months to a year maximum.
Deputy Mayor, do you have any follow-up questions?
No, Your Worship. Thank you very much.
Councillor McDougall.
Yes, Your Worship, thank you, and through you, Your Worship, to Ian or Kevin. Thanks for your presentation, but I'll echo what the Deputy Mayor said and what Councillor Coyne said. Council has been having meetings with Ivan since January. I'm sure we had 5 or 6 meetings virtually and some in person. Probably close to 50 emails were sent back and forth to Ivan and his company through to the mayor and to the rest of council. We sent letters of support to Nova Scotia Business Inc. We sent letters of support to government agencies. We've sent letters to the mayors and wardens of different municipalities in our area. And we've been working hard on this, and I appreciate that we have some support on this with the Economic Development Committee. But I'll echo the Deputy Mayor's question is, what more can we do? We're trying to do as much, and maybe you guys aren't aware of the amount of time and energy that we have been putting into this ourselves. But if there's anything more we can do, I would love to know. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Councillor McDougall. So I guess Ian or Kevin, did you have any, are there any next steps perhaps that the council can participate in, I guess, going forward? I know that we don't have a kind of a significant next steps plan at this point, but is there anything we could be doing in the next 6 to 12 months that we could, I guess, rally around this file, and not just for the benefit of the Brizo Energy file, but also for the benefit of the opportunity to the region? Is there any, I guess, thoughts you could offer on that?
I'll just jump in first, if that's okay. I appreciate Councillor McDougall's comments, and they're well founded, I'm sure. In support of your hard work, we are collecting a lot of technical and regulatory data. Some important stuff that are highlighted as a starting point. We have created a library in the town office, and one of the first documents we had produced was the Act itself, and I'm sure you've all read it well. And in there you can see areas that hinder an industry like this in this part of the world. So being well acquainted and versed in the Act is a starting point when speaking to elected representatives in the House of Assembly in Halifax can affect change. In addition to that, there's a lot of supporting documentation we've created that is in the library in the town office, from classification societies that are supporting the technology that is emerging and that's actually being employed, creating clean energy and economic drivers in regions of the world which we are unable to do. So as you continue to work, not for Brizo or any proponent, but for anybody who wants to develop wind energy and doesn't have the ability to do so in this part of the world because of legislation, continue, encourage you to educate as much as yourself as much as you can to deal with this file.
And just to add to this, and I do appreciate and know of all the work that council's been doing, and I don't want them to take our presentation as an indication that we thought you weren't. The fact of the matter is, just understanding government and where they are, there's going to have to be a major lift happen in the next 6 to 12 months to ensure that this goes forward. And that's what we're just saying is that, number one, thank you for the work you've done, but the fact of the matter is this proves, okay, that this is a project and development that could actually do major economic benefits to the region. So I encourage you to continue to do the work you're doing on this and everything that possibly can be done to ensure that Nova Scotia announces that this is what they want to be is very important.
Thank you very much for that. Do you have any follow-up questions, Councillor McDougall, or comments?
Yes, Your Worship. Just a comment, I guess, and I appreciate what you guys are saying, and thank you for saying that. But just to let you know, you probably already know, but you're talking about other communities and that Ivan came to us, and we are the sole municipality in the province that he's working through us, not any of the other municipalities or any of the other governments. We are the sole, and he's I don't know the word, I guess he's building his momentum from us and getting our support, whether it be through letters or through calls or whatever. But we are the main municipality in the province. Thank you.
Yeah, we are aware of that, but Councillor, here's the issue. If the province does not start the regulatory process, then Ivan has no project. That is, I guess what you want to call it, where the rubber hits the road. That unless Nova Scotia gets involved and starts the process of regulation so windmills can be set up in Nova Scotia waters, his project is dead. And I can tell you, talking with Scott Erkhert, he's willing to actually, with other global players, do the same here. This is a huge opportunity, but that's going to be the stumbling block. If Nova Scotia and the federal government do not get together and start the regulatory framework and announce that they're going to be involved, then Ivan's project goes nowhere. Just to also let you know, Newfoundland announced 6 weeks ago that they were going to invest heavily in the offshore wind, and they are estimating the revenue source by 2050 for Newfoundland for offshore wind will be $11 billion a year.
I wanted to also give Councillor McIver an opportunity to, I guess, weigh in on the presentation, and also Councillor McIver also chairs the Waterfront Development Committee as well. And I know maybe, Mark, you can share with Ian and Kevin, I guess, a little bit of the work that's been done to date. And I do believe the committee is very interested in terms of wind and kind of using that as a theme for development on the waterfront. So I'll hand things over to you, Mark.
Yes, Your Worship, through you. I'll echo with the rest of the council. Thank you, Ian and Kevin, for the presentation. And wind, I guess, is very important around the Strait because, you know, we have a lot of it. And as Councillor McDougall was saying, we've been working with Ivan since January or so, and I know that we're one of the leads in it, and he's been talking with the province. We've been doing letters to the province. He's also been talking to the federal government, MPs, because a lot of this would hinge on federal too, because a lot of it will take place in federal waters. So there's a lot of regulations and stuff, and we're pushing for it very hard and big supporters of it. And if Ivan needs anything from us, he knows it's just a phone call, and we're all at the table to meet with him. As the waterfront, they're the same. That they like to have some wind, I guess, attractions there to promote the Strait and show that there is that kind of opportunity here. So again, all I can say is thank you for your presentation and keep up the good work and keep in touch.
Thanks, Ian and Kevin. And I know that, I guess, as we move forward with regard to the opportunity of offshore wind, and as we continue to work with Ivan and Brizo Energy and on that file, I guess once we get to a point where we kind of understand, you know, who really needs to be on a kind of a task force team, if you will, to help kind of build some political will and build more momentum. And if there are future roles, I guess, or recommendations that you can move forward to council for further assistance on how we can continue to advocate for this new emerging offshore wind opportunity, certainly I think that you have a very willing council membership who definitely wants to continue to build momentum behind this particular project and this particular opportunity more generally. Any other questions or comments for Kevin or Ian at this time? Okay, so thank you so much for your time and efforts. And I guess if council is interested, I know that Ian and Kevin have been working with through Terry and through some of our other senior staff to have some of that information available here to council or to any of our economic development committee members. So if there's any point you would like to check out that inventory of information, just give Terry a shout, and he can definitely give you access to that. So we'll move on then to agenda item number 5, which is council reports on assigned committees. Okay, so at this time, does council, I know we have had a summer recess and some committees have met and some committees have not met. But at this time, I would ask if there are any reports that council can offer at this time.
Yes, Your Worship. Just one meeting, Your Worship, was with Landry Lake Utility, and it was primarily just to go over the audit and approve it. And as you just stated, we're just coming back from summer recess, and on the 23rd, I'll have an Eastern District Planning Commission meeting. On the 28th, I have a Joint Police Advisory Board meeting. And on the 29th, Audit Committee meeting. So we're just getting rolling, so not much to report on my end.
Thank you, Councillor McIver. There'll definitely be a much more meatier report at the next committee of the whole as well. I have an airport committee meeting I'm chairing tomorrow morning, so I echo that on my end too. Councillor McDougall?
Yes, Your Worship, thank you. Through you, and I'll echo what Councillor McIver said. We had the Landry Lake committee meeting that I'm on, that Mark chairs. We had obviously the Wall of Fame we've been meeting that everybody heard about at the beginning of our council meeting. We police advisory coming up on the 28th. We have 2 new members from representatives from the town of Port Hawkesbury. Archie McLaughlin and Gerard Livingston are 2 citizens on the committee now. And on the 29th, the audit committee meeting is coming up with Aaron.
Hey, thank you for your report, Councillor McDougall. Councillor O'Coin?
So back in June, we had a housing advisory committee. On June 16th, the 17th, we had a planning advisory committee. Also on the 17th, we had a Parks and Rec committee meeting. On the 14th, we had the Strait Richmond Housing Matters committee meeting. On September 8th, I believe it was, another Strait Richmond Housing Coalition meeting. We attempted to have another Parks and Recreation meeting last week, but we couldn't get enough people present. And like you said, tomorrow we have the airport meeting. And we also had a planning advisory committee meeting last week. That was good. It was very intensive. And we've got some good takeaways, which hopefully we'll be able to present something to the council in the next month or so. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Councillor Coyne. Deputy Mayor McCrory?
Yes, Your Worship. Last Thursday, there was both the Planning Advisory Committee meeting and the Eastern Counties Regional Library. Just very briefly, as part of that Planning Committee meeting, there was discussion regarding amendments to the municipal planning strategy and the land use bylaw to allow for off-site signage within town boundaries, which would allow for what's called close proximity advertising to drive-through establishments. And I believe we're going to be discussing that some more this evening. Second issue was regarding affordable housing and accessory dwelling units, a review about that. So we are looking at possible zoning changes to allow for higher density developments for things such as garden suites and basement apartments. The library is always a full agenda. We were looking at policies regarding long-term service awards or approving policies for long-term service awards, employee vaccination policy, and a National Truth and Reconciliation Day policy. We reviewed Phase 5 service updates, and there's certainly concern that the CEO, Laura Emery, has for staff because they will have a requirement to have to ask users of the library service for proof of vaccination, and that's raising some concern. We talked about what's called a novelist project, which is an automated book dispensary that the Eastern Counties Regional Library has approved and gotten approval from Community Culture and Heritage to install this unit in the Civic Center. And what it is books are, I'll say, loaded into this dispensary, and people are able to access that when the Civic Center is open, and they can select their book from that dispensary, and then they'll be able to return it either in the library, or there's going to be a new book drop-off installed at the side entrance of CEREC. I will say that the CEO, Laura Emery, was very complimentary toward the IT staff that have been assisting with that particular project and with the town staff that she's had contact with. She made mention of that on Thursday night, so I just want to pass that along. And finally, we did have a review. The CEO, Laura Emery, did meet with the District of St. Mary's Municipal Council about a week and a half ago in response to questions and concerns they have about some cuts that they had in service because of a funding review that we've done. So anyhow, that meeting went well. She will be attending a Guysborough County Council meeting to do the same presentation, and Laura will be scheduling a meeting with Port Hawkesbury Town Council in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor McCrory. So just some other items that I can add to the reports. We did have an economic development meeting last week, and part of that meeting was similar to the information that was shared this evening in the gallery presentation to council. So that committee continues to work on the wind file, but not only on the wind file, they also are looking at other kind of economic development opportunities that committee can focus on over the long term. I also did attend a Cape Breton Wren meeting as well. And coming up this week, there will be a Cape Breton South Recruiting for Health meeting, as well as an airport committee meeting tomorrow. And also the housing meeting that was scheduled for last week has been rescheduled. So I will be able to report on those meetings when I have the opportunity at the next committee of the whole in October. Is there any other lingering reports the council would like to offer at this time?
Yes, Your Worship. Just to speak about the welcoming event that was put on last week here in Port Hawkesbury through Wide Reach in the town of Port Hawkesbury. Yourself and myself met a few times on that. It was very well attended, and just a thank you to all the volunteers, I guess, a little bit of recognition for the event that was put on, and very well received, very well attended. And I want to thank you for your help on that.
Thank you very much, Councillor Coyne. I guess when we say well attended, I think we had in excess of 200 participants at the community park that evening. I dare say that was a successful evening. And also, if council's interested, there are some videos that are being circulated with regard to some of the festivities that were going on last Wednesday at that welcoming event. And I guess I would be remiss if I didn't mention that although we haven't had a formal kind of organized, I guess, call out from members for a welcoming committee, that is still kind of in the works. And that particular welcoming event, I guess, is kind of within the fold of the potential that a welcoming committee can bring to the community, and the good work that welcoming committee can do in conjunction with YReach, Raising the Villages, and the other and Rotary Club and the other service-based community groups that are doing really great work, not just for welcoming, but also doing really great work into other areas of the community and of the region. Thanks for mentioning that as well, Councillor Coyne. Now we'll move on to CAO reports. So I will hand things over to our CAO, Terry Doyle, to take us through the reports and the updates. Thanks, Terry.
Yes, Your Worship. So we'll go through our our department reports, marketing, recreation, tourism, finance, engineering, and public works, facilities and operations, and we'll also, and I will add something as well on strategic planning. So we're going to start off with Michelle with marketing, recreation, tourism, and culture.
Your Worship, good evening to you and good evening to everyone tonight. It's nice to be here with you all again. Just wanted to mention before I begin my report, I've had the opportunity over the last number of months to work with numerous volunteer committees, and I just wanted to commend the incredible volunteers that we have on board on all of these fantastic committees doing the good work for the town. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the hard work and effort that goes into every single thing that they do and that they do for the town. So I'll start my report with a little update on the trails with the Strait Area Trails Association. The team has been working hard all summer maintaining and repairing the trails. I will say they worked tirelessly over the last 5 weeks for our Tunes on the Trails event, making the trails absolutely beautiful and incredibly safe for everyone in attendance at those events. We had 2 summer students dedicated to the trails. They participated in tree cleanup, chipping, and multiple trail locations with the volunteer teams on their Trail Tuesdays. Cleanup and repairs were completed on the Spruce Trail, newly improved Hemlock Trail, and newly constructed Davis Brook Loop. The Strait Area Pool is set to open for lessons on October 12th, with registration beginning and the phone lines open at the pool on October 4th. And we will be open at the pool 4 days a week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Saturdays. Sport Wall of Fame, I know Mr. Davis and Councillor McDougall covered all of that, but again, just love to commend this incredibly efficient team of volunteers who make this happen. It's so important, the work that they do every day. The Art Gallery Committee opened a brand new show. I encourage everybody to check it out. It features the works of Dr. Edward Aronson and Ora Cordero de Aronson, sorry. It's a beautiful show. I encourage you to hop into the art gallery and check it out. Just to touch on Tunes on the Trails, it was an incredible, fun, wonderful event. We had fantastic weather on all 5 Sundays for this event. It was overall very well received with great feedback coming from all participants. However, very low attendance. We had an average of about 160 tickets out for the events, with only about an average of 20 to 30 people attending, actually coming, although they got tickets. So just wanted to again commend the team who made that execution of that event happen. And it's really too bad that not more people came out to enjoy that. As far as the department, we had an incredibly busy summer. We hosted a very, very successful summer camp that ran from July 5th to August 27th. Many of the days and weeks were actually waitlisted at maximum attendance, so really important to mention that and the importance of providing that service. Our kids had an incredible time, very well received by all the parents and caregivers. And it was in partnership with Leaside Society, so I really want to commend and thank Leaside for their participation and for their support in running that event and that camp. The department created a free Parcel of Possibilities kit that included activities, crafts, recipes, science experiments, and fun family challenges that people could pick up at the Civic Center, and we distributed about 50 of those kits. And I do believe we have a few left if anyone is interested in getting some of those. We provided 4 guided trail hikes over the summer on different routes on the Strait Area Trails, which was really a great way to feature the trails and get more visibility there. And we had a scavenger hunt around Port Hawkesbury as well. Very successful free equipment loan program, particularly our electric bike loan program. We rent out the bikes for free, and we're still getting bookings and requests to rent those out. So very, very successful program. The department hosted 2 outdoor movies, one in July and one in August. They were both very well attended, and we received great feedback from those. We also had some live entertainment available on those nights. We just released yesterday the fall recreation guide, and I won't go through every single program because there are a lot of them, but it's available on our website, and it's pinned to the top of our Facebook page as well. So we have a full complement of recreation, sport, music, and craft offerings. So be sure to check those out and contact us with any questions or to register for those. Performances. So over the summer, the department hosted Gunning Cormier, Port Cities, and COIG, all very well attended. And we have some shows coming up. We have a comedy show coming up October 21st. And 2 Christmas shows, 'Tis the Season with Bette McDonald and crew on December 11th, and possibly a second show on the 12th, and Lenny Gallant Christmas on December 16th. And just wanted to throw out some save the dates for Granville Green 2022 because my event planner brain is going overtime now, and we've started planning that already. So save the dates, July 3rd to August 7th. 2022. And last thing, I just wanted to touch a little bit on the communications and marketing, and I wanted to thank Melissa for her help. We started having a bit of a comprehensive look at our websites and the information and how it's organized, and kind of started thinking about how we want to streamline the look and how we want to manage our social media pages and all of that. So we're conducting a comprehensive review of all of those, and there's more to come on that. So that'll be a bit of a process, but just wanting to find the best way to get information out to everyone. And we also updated our arena partnership package, so that'll be available really soon in the next week or so. So we'll be sending those out to potential partners in obtaining arena boards and other types of advertising at the arena. And then just to note that our total page likes for the Town of Port Hawkesbury Facebook page increased by 331 since April. So we're getting more visibility and more traffic on our social media page. And that's it for now.
I just ask for any questions from councillors.
Yes, through you, your worship, to Michelle. I was lucky enough to be able to attend one of the Tunes and the Trails events. It was very exciting. It was a great atmosphere, an incredible venue. Kudos to whoever came up with that and the team that put it together. It was very well done. Everybody that was there spoke highly of the event. Yeah, I can't say enough about that event. It was incredible. I wish I could have made it to more of the events. When you talk about your summer programs, every day you'd see the kids walking to and from the park or playing outside the Civic Center. It seemed like everybody had a great time. The staff did an amazing job. The summer students and the staff that's here all year long planning and executing that. So just a big thank you to all the staff, and the job very well done. Thank you.
And through your worship, thank you so much, Councillor O'Coin. I should mention as well, we were very, very fortunate with our complement of summer students. They were just absolutely fantastic, and we received many kudos from about the 3 M's that were working in the summer camp this year.
Thanks, Michelle. I just wanted to also extend to council how great it's been to work with Michelle on our Truth and Reconciliation activities that we're actually going to be hosting here tomorrow night, starting at 5:30. And thank you for all of the support you've been able to give. And you know, you just magically make these posters appear, and they look so beautiful. So thank you for the wizardry. It's awesome. And just for the benefit of council as well. And I wanted to thank Councillor McDougall and Councillor O'Coin as well. They're They will be participating tomorrow night. I think it's going to be a really great, I guess, show of support around truth and reconciliation and remembrance. And I hope that council can partake. And of course, and I know Deputy Mayor McCrory and Councillor McIver are unable to make it because they have prior commitments. But I hope that both of you will take the opportunity at some point before the 30th to pick up an orange ribbon from Michelle, or one or two or three, and tie a ribbon to honor the memory of the many thousands of children, Indigenous children and adults who didn't return from residential schools. So again, I just wanted to thank you, Michelle, for all of your support on those two activities that we will be, I guess, delivering tomorrow evening, hopefully with all kinds of success and in great participation.
It's my pleasure. And just to mention regarding the orange ribbons, so starting tomorrow, they will be available at the box office for anyone who wants to come by and grab a ribbon and tie it on our dedicated Truth and Reconciliation tree. Thank you.
Yes, Your Worship, through you. Yeah, thank you. No, I just want to mention and thank Michelle for mentioning all the volunteers that we have in the town and all the work that they do, and that has been historically that we always had good volunteers in the town, and I'm so proud of them over the years. I don't I'm not on Facebook a lot, but I did share your recreation program, and wherever it was, and I did get a lot of likes, or whatever you call it, with it also. And hopefully our Granville Green will get the weather that we had for our tunes on the trails, because sometimes we had to go, a lot of times over the years we had to go into the Civic Center. But thank you again for your hard work.
Through your worship, thank you, Councillor McDougall, and thanks for the kind words.
Thank you, Michelle, and I'd ask Erin to present her report.
Thank you, Terry. Through you, Your Worship, I'll be as brief as I can here because I know our evening's been quite long. So just on the debenture balloon refinancing, Council, you approved those resolutions at the September public meeting. All that information has been submitted to the Municipal Finance Corp. So we're anticipating proceeds on that refinancing later in the fall. Councillor McIver and McDougall spoke of the Landry Lake Board meeting where we approved the financial statements, the March 31st financial statements, which was fantastic. The Police Advisory Board meeting is scheduled for September 28th, and the newly appointed citizen representatives will be attending that meeting. Just wanted to let you know that. Audit Committee meeting is scheduled for September 29th. And looking to bring the audited financial statements to Council for approval at the October public meeting. All of the mandatory provincial reporting has been submitted to date, with the exception of the FIR, which is the financial information return, which has not been released for input from the province yet. So once that's released, we will get it in as soon as we can. Just on the shared information technology project. That intermunicipal agreement that we entered into has been fully executed by all parties. That organization has moved forward with the advertisement for the hiring of an IT director for that shared organization. Just in case you've seen that advertisement, that was part of the plan put forward from IMP. And just the last piece that I need some clarification or some guidance on from Council. The Port Hastings Historical Society has made a request for a donation. They actually, I think, moved forward with a decking project on September 18th. The cost of the project was approximately $1,700, and they're asking Council to consider a contribution towards that project. Just to give you some prior donations that were made to the Port Hastings Historical Society in the past for capital projects. We did donate $500 2 years ago and $1,000 last year, or vice versa. So That has been the level of contribution that we provided in the past. So just looking for some direction from council on moving forward with this donation request. Thank you.
Any questions for Aaron at this time?
Through you, your worship, to Aaron. Aaron, did we not pass an amount for the Historical Society in this past year's budget?
So no, that was something that we were going to address when the request came forward. So there was no amount allotted. But we did, when we met at budget time, discuss previous amounts provided, which were the 500 and the 1,000. But we received the financial statements from the Port Hastings Historical Society, which is something we typically get when donations are being requested. And they also provided some details and a quote for the decking that they were looking to replace. So that wasn't something that was confirmed during budget deliberations.
So nothing was received from the Historical Society requesting a contribution then back in the spring, is that right?
So we had requested information from them. They, I think it was in June or towards the end of June that I received financial statements and the quote for the decking, which I said would bring forward in September because we didn't have any public meetings with council once that information had been received. So there was no request at budget time that we had received, but we did look at funding requests that we would typically receive in any given year, and we looked at what previous donations would have been, but we did not have a request at that time. But we did receive information towards the end of June, which is why it's coming forward now.
So what is our ability in terms of what finances do we have to be able to make a contribution?
Yeah, so we've committed about $7,000 right now of our donation budget, which is $18,000. And there's still a couple of requests that may be coming forward. But yeah, you would have, you know, if whatever council is considering, especially if it's something within what we would have looked at in previous years, you would have that in your budget.
So although we can't make a motion tonight, I would certainly suggest looking to contribute $1,000 to the Historical Society in recognition of the work that they do on our behalf. And we've discussed this at council a couple of times in the past. And they are the keepers of our historical information. They are a volunteer group. And if we were having to do that ourselves, it would be quite a bit more than $1,000. So anyhow, that's my comment.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Is there any other questions or comments for Aaron? Councillor McDougall.
Yes, Your Worship. Thank you. Through you to Aaron. I think at budget time, our intent was to support the Historical Society because what the Deputy Mayor says, they do a lot of work on our behalf, and we didn't know the number at the time, but definitely our council's intent was to support it at the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McDougall. Councillor Coyne.
Through your worship, Aaron, have they asked for any amount in particular or just a donation?
Just a donation. They're just a contribution towards their capital project, which they provided quotations for $1,700.
Okay, thank you.
Come.
Councillor McIver.
Yes, Your Worship. No, I'm fine with the donation.
Okay, so we will move that forward to our next public meeting for a motion of council and definitely in consideration of the request that's come forward. So I appreciate that, Aaron. Is there anything more for your update or any other questions of council for Aaron? Okay, back over to Terry.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I'd pass this on to Jason for engineering and public works.
Thank you, Terry. Good evening, Your Worship and everyone. Going to try to keep this brief as well. In your council package, you're provided with a monthly traffic sign report. which kind of spanned the data throughout the summer since our previous meeting. Very typical numbers that we're seeing as per usual with the current sign placement. Our PCAP application for which would be a really great project for us to have completed at our water treatment plant. It's called the MCC. It would involve the removal of an old MCC center and some electrical upgrades and new motor starters for high-lit pumps and such. Unfortunately, we haven't heard back from the province on the status of this application yet. So we are ready to go to tender very, very quickly once we hear back with a positive outcome for our application. Next slide. Just wanted to speak a little bit about our investment in our town streets this year. So another year with a huge effort into making improvements into streets and parking lots, and through work conducted by our own staff, through contractors, through our capital paving, and repairing areas in the Incubator Mall parking lot, which failed after a few years. And we provide some pictures for you guys to review as well. So kudos to the Public Works crew for undertaking that work. One thing I wanted to mention about the asphalt work, upwards of 180 ton of asphalt were placed this year on town streets, which is quite a bit of asphalt for pothole repair and patching work for a town our size. And I will mention that out of that 180 ton, most of it would have been shoveled by hand by the crews at some point out of the bucket of the backhoe into those potholes. So it's a huge effort. They did a lot of work. Moving on to sidewalk upgrades. So Public Works staff are currently undertaking a sidewalk replacement project, really, on Philpott Street, and they're doing a fantastic job. They're quite proud of the quality of the work that they're producing. These pedestrian ramps will be constructed to current accessibility standards and fitted with tactile walking surface indicator plates for accessibility improvements. So another pour was conducted by staff this afternoon, and we'll put another pour on that area tomorrow. So moving on, crosswalk upgrades and pavement markings. So we wanted to touch on that a little bit. So this year we've continued to make improvements on the crosswalks in town through upgrading signage, through using an improved method for marking mid-block crosswalks in town. So hopefully folks have noticed those improvements. We're very proud of the safety improvements made at the new all-way stop at Granville and McSween, with a pretty innovative way to create a somewhat temporary all-way stop arrangement, which is much safer for an increased number of pedestrians using that intersection. So we've received a lot of very positive comments on that arrangement as well. So, and our street line painting work was completed in August, which was later than we would have hoped. And as you know, this work was delayed due to industry-wide shortage of asphalt paints earlier in the summer, when that work would typically be done. Moving on, Leaf and Yard Waste site. We always like to provide an update on the usage of that site, and this year we committed to kind of trying to mine out some of the information about where the folks are actually coming from that use that facility. So we're averaging about 28 visitors per morning when the site is open, and there is information provided which kind of breaks down which areas the users are from on any given Saturday morning. There are a few gaps in the data where days where our intern wasn't available to operate the site, and he's since gone back to school. So we're operating with other staff, which we're probably not going to be able to get that data, but we will try to pick it up again next year. Winter control policy. So in your community of the whole package, you were provided with a draft winter control policy that we had put together. And the intention of this would be to have council review this policy and provide us with any comments, perhaps at the October meeting, and then hopefully have a final draft of a policy that we can put in place for November, and be referencing and utilizing this policy moving forward. So hopefully everybody gets a chance to have a look at the document, and what it is. It essentially details the very high level of service that residents in the town of Port Hawkesbury are provided with regards to street and sidewalk snow and ice control. The policy explains the rationale for the response of staff, the roles and responsibilities of staff and management, how we monitor weather conditions, how we prioritize our efforts and conduct the operations, and classifies the various town streets. So it was a pretty involved piece of work, and love to get feedback on that document. And yeah, so feel free to reach out to me or Terry if you have any questions or would like further information on that. Tamarack Connection, AT Trail. So in your council package, we provided a drawing that is being finalized and produced as we speak, by WSP Engineering. So this section looks at the end of the Sydney Road and the connection from the trail going towards Tamarack. So this work is well underway. We most certainly do expect to produce tender and specification documents by the end of the month or shortly after, and our intention is to construct this project this year. It was delayed from what we had originally hoped, and I want to explain that a little bit. So with the potential for a development property in the area, that changed the way we have to design that trail. So there's some elevation differences and challenges that brought that caused us to kind of take a step back and redesign the trail alignment and elevation in certain areas, making sure that we're accounting for any future developments in that area. Additionally, what we have decided on for this year is to proceed with construction on the two ends of that trail. So exactly like Terry is circling there. So the area from Pinecrest and Tamarack to the entrance to the water tower, we would complete that, and then the area from Sydney Road turning cul-de-sac to shortly before the entrance to the proposed development property. That would be constructed this year. By leaving the middle section out, what it does, it allows us to continue those arrangements with Nova Scotia Public Works and work on more detailed design for servicing of that property, which would have to be done before final trail construction. So additionally, you were provided with an activity report by our Public Works staff for the months of July and August, and I would be happy answer any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jason. Any questions for Jason at this time with regard to his report? Councillor Aucoin?
Through your worship, Jason, not really questions. Just a couple of things you said that caught my attention, and one of them was the nearly 180 tons of asphalt. And I can back up your words because I've seen Public Works shoveling that more than once this year, and they did a fantastic job. And I really want to commend Public Works on the job they did down at Sunset Manor and fixing the pavement there. The residents there are very happy with that. I'm very happy to see it. And again, Jay, you know, the crew you have working under you, they're fantastic. They're top notch. Every time I stop to talk to them, they're always in a pleasant mood. They're having fun at work, which is nice to see. Happy employees are usually more productive employees. And I can say from talking to that group, they're very happy. So keep up the great work for yourself and the crew. Thank you.
Councillor Aucoin. Deputy Mayor Macquarie?
Yes, Your Worship. Through you, Jason, I definitely would echo Councillor Aucoin's comments about Public Works staff. They're extremely hardworking bunch, and we can see that every month by the reports that you provide us in terms of like even this July and August report, but what went on with asphalt, what goes on all throughout town in the summertime, and then what they deal with in the wintertime. So anyhow, just make that comment. How does this summer 180 tons compare to last summer, Jason? Are we down or up?
So actually, we put out more asphalt last year. So that's one of the nice things about the approach that we're using now, is that last year was really our first year with this approach, and we had a lot of areas that we had to fix. It took a lot of time and effort. This year, we still had quite a few potholes that we had to address, but less than the previous year. And the areas that we're fixing with this method are staying better. So we're getting a longer lasting, more robust repair of our asphalt surface for holes. It's not the best application for certain types of failure that we see in some of our asphalt surfaces, but it works for a lot of areas. And hopefully, what we want to see is that as we continue on with this process, is that we're able to put out less and less asphalt, because we won't need to put out as much in future years, and we can continue to build on our capital program every year to do the full type of project.
Well, and Jason, what's going to happen with the temporary all-way stop this winter?
So we can do a couple of things. We can leave it as is for the winter, and try to adjust our snow plowing work around those temporary curbs, or if we choose to take them out for the winter and kind of put the arrangement back to a more, I'm really apprehensive to kind of switching back to a yield sign there and making that a three-legged stop intersection. So what my recommendation would be is for those temporary curbs to remain there for the winter, see how it works. I'm quite confident that our staff can make the attempt to conduct winter plowing operations around those, and look towards making a more permanent arrangement long term.
Thank you.
Any follow-up questions, Deputy Mayor Macquarie?
No, Your Worship. Thank you.
Any other questions from McDougall or Councillor McIver?
Yes, Your Worship, through you. A couple of things. I have a question also, but I'd like to thank Jason and the Works Department from the Infrastructure Committee, myself and Councillor McDougall, for making yourself available at short notice, phone calls and truck rides and checking things out. You've done a great job all summer on all ends of the town. I see improvements, and I'm sure we'll be meeting in the future. And the question, I've been questioned about the stop sign on Reynolds onto Sydney by McIsaac store, and why it was changed. The residents there were kind of upset about it, and I couldn't give them the answer because there hasn't been an accident there forever. So I said I would check with you.
So what we've seen in a few areas throughout town, which we're trying to make safety improvements for, are areas where there was yield signs installed instead of stop signs at intersections for no particular reason, other than, you know, it would allow someone to maybe do a rolling stop. That particular intersection, we felt the sight lines weren't great, especially if people were parked close to the road shoulder at the McIsaac store. So if there was a vehicle approaching that yield sign and their sight lines weren't great looking left, and they ventured out into that oncoming lane, we felt it was a much safer arrangement to make the change to a stop sign.
Okay, thank you. I can pass that on. Thank you, Worship.
Thank you, Councillor McIver. Councillor McDougall?
Yes, Your Worship, through you. I just want to thank you, Jason, for the good work you're doing and your and the Works Department, obviously. And I did have the same question that Councillor McIver had on that yield sign. But anyway, I'm sure we'll be meeting again in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jason. I just have one quick question. When typically do we close the leaf and yard waste site?
Leaf and yard waste site this year is scheduled to close on October 23rd, would be the last Saturday.
I'm happy to pass that information on to the citizen who asked that. So thank you for the information. And of course, on behalf of council, please relay our compliments as a council to all the hard work that's been done. And thank you so much for your report. And I think Terry is probably going to pass things on, I guess, to Gordy. I don't know, Terry, do you want me to just do the pass off for you?
That sounds great. Thank you.
Gordy, over to you.
Well, thank you, Your Worship, and through you. Good evening, everyone. I'll run through my report as quickly as I can. Starting with the Civic Center, we're currently remaining in phase 4 of the government public health guidelines. We are now, though, allowing the only change that we are now allowing food and beverage in the building. So up until last Wednesday, it was not allowed, but it is now. Back in July, we hosted a high school graduation in the Bear Head because of weather. It was supposed to be outside, but it was moved in, and then I think it went pretty good. And since the last week of late in July there, we've had our ice plant on, and we're about a month and a half into to our hockey season. Moving on to our summer job program with our students, as Michelle had mentioned earlier, we had 6 great students this year hired through the summer job program. The first student started on June 1st, and the last student finished up with us on August 27th. Each position had 35 hours a week for 8 weeks, and they were given the opportunity to work some extra weeks outside of the program, but some of them were able to take advantage of, and some of them with their schedule for moving on to school were not. So the students supported multiple departments throughout the municipality, as Michelle mentioned, including some great work on the trails. Our fields and parks, we hosted a provincial tournament last month. It was very successful. I think considering the weather, everything went really well and everybody enjoyed themselves. We were able to refurbish some existing garbage bins and benches and tables at our parks and waterfronts and green spaces. We received a couple of pieces of new maintenance equipment. We received a new Kubota tractor, bucket tractor with a 48-inch mowing deck, a 54-inch mowing deck. And it replaced our Kubota tractor, which was 41 years old. So we got some good service out of that, and we hope to get the same out of this one. We received a new Kubota ride-on mower to start replacing some of our older mowers. Our last mower was ride-on mower was purchased about 9 years ago. So we're starting to improve on our equipment. Both very nice pieces of equipment, and they've certainly allowed us to be more efficient in the tasks that we have to do with them. Not only moving soil and stuff around, but mowing. So it's cut down on some of our times to do some of our daily tasks, which is good. The pools, both pools were drained when we closed back in April. Extensive maintenance. We deep scrubbing in all of our tiles and resealed all the tiles on the walls and the floors of both pools. The original drains in the floors of the pools were resealed and new covers installed. All of the caulking in the corners, the seams, the walls, the seams in the walls, the floor seams, the lights around the lights, the skimmers, the return jets, everything was taken out and recaulked. The underwater lights were refinished by means of sanding and repainting with water features. We refinished and repiped our umbrella water feature that hangs over the small pool, and we refinished our diving boards and our starting blocks. So some good work done at the pool while we were closed. So both pools are full again now, and the water is balanced, and we're just trying to get some heat into them. Town beautification, multiple locations improved and maintained throughout the summer, including but not limited to the hanging baskets at the Civic Center and the waterfront. Our big baskets which hang at our bridges at the entrances town and at the AT Trail Bridge. We did some significant improvements to the Hawk Park, the Tamarack sign, the Civic Center, water flower beds, the Creamery flower beds, and the waterfront flower beds. And again, I have to really compliment our summer staff. We had 6 great students. We actually had 8. 2 of them were with the part of the 3Ms, but our summer staff and our seasonal summer staff, as well as our permanent staff, really went out of their way this year to branch out in all aspects of employment throughout town, do different things and get some stuff done to really improve the look of our town. The fire hall, the big project there at the fire hall recently was the new generator. So that's completed and it's been tested, including the automatic transfer switch. So when power goes out now, the generator automatically cuts in. And the roof, the re-shingling of the roof started yesterday. So we're a couple of days into that. We had a new highway sign installed at the airport, coming in both directions. Really complements the entrance to the airport. And we did some repairs to the roof at the yacht club and the garage at the yacht club and the gazebo at the yacht club. Accessibility, we made some good strides in accessibility. We had a new hard surface path to travel installed at the playground, right from the entrance when you come off the raised crosswalk. It takes you right into the splash pad and to the accessible washrooms. We also had new hard surface parking stalls installed. We had 3 hard surface parking stalls with transfer spaces, and we have one for new and expected parents also. So big improvements there for accessibility at that site, and we have some plans to do some other sites in town, but right now that's what we've got done. So that's my report for now, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Gordy. At this time, does council have some questions? Councillor Coyne?
Again, through you, your worship, to Gordy, no real questions, just a few comments. First of all, I want to thank you and Robert for being very responsive when myself or somebody else from council reached out to maybe an area that was overseen or missed. It was taken care of quickly, and I really appreciate that. And I spoke about this 2 weeks ago, and I'll speak about it again, since you mentioned the provincial tournament. The staff did an outstanding job. The cooperation from town was second to none. And just, yeah, again, thank you for cooperating and working with us, and your staff did an amazing job this summer.
Thank you, Councillor Coyne.
Any other questions or comments for Gordy at this time?
Yes, your worship, through you to Gordy. Gordy, with phase 5, when we get into phase 5, who is going to be responsible for looking for proof of vaccination for patrons of the Civic Center?
That's the million-dollar question. I think we're just in the midst of developing our policy now, Councillor or Deputy Mayor. So I can't really answer it right now. In the past, we've put tasks like that onto our user groups, which work really well with contact tracing and names and numbers. I'm not sure if that's going to be the case or if it's going to be something different, but I really don't have a definitive answer at this time, but we are in the midst of getting that policy together before October 4th.
Yeah, so as you would appreciate, it's one thing to do contact tracing. It's another thing to be asking people for proof of vaccination. And we've seen the sort of rancor that has caused already throughout the country. And my concern is that when you mention user groups, those are volunteers that are involved with the hockey programs, for instance. I personally don't believe we should be asking those parents, those volunteers to take on that responsibility. I think that's something that the town is going to need to look at. How are we going to do that, as opposed to putting that on these volunteers? So anyhow, I just wanted to make that comment.
No, and thank you for that. I mean, and it may be 100% on the town. We're just not sure yet. It may be mandated to be 100% on the town provincially. So, or I just know what in the early discussions when that was brought out for October 4th from the government and from public health, facilities across the province where we met, we had a public forum, kind of a town hall thing through our fans, and that was the biggest question on who's going to man this and who's going to be responsible for it, and is it going to be the same as contact tracing? And like you mentioned, it's a lot more intricate and personal than contact tracing. So I just don't have a real answer for you right now. Hopefully we'll have something that's going to be developed and into a policy and that we can share in the near future.
So Gordy, will that be something then the council will have an opportunity to have some discussion and input in? Will that be provided to us to be able to meet and have a conversation about it?
I would expect that it would have to be reviewed by council. I'm not totally sure on that, but I would expect that would be the process.
Thank you, Gordy. Your worship, through you to Terry. Terry, would that be the expectation that whatever's developed would come before council as policy normally does?
Yeah, no, definitely there'll be feedback sought from council. It's not a policy. This is implementation of provincial law. So we will certainly be sharing with council and looking for your feedback. There's no question about that. But I think everybody realizes that direction from the province has not been received yet on all aspects of this, and we're getting more information as days go on, and we're trying to put that together to see what this actually looks like. And it does get complicated as to where exceptions made. What do you do with that? And who is and one of the questions is who is responsible for that. It would look like the facility owner is ultimately responsible So, and that's what we're looking at right now, and how does that work, and how are we going to implement that? Sort of the leaseor, as an example, the gym would be responsible for that portion, but certainly events that we're putting on ourselves. The complicator comes with minor hockey and other users of the arena, other users of our facility, and still, we're still grappling with exactly what events will require vaccination and what events and activities will require it. Like I mentioned, we have been getting information on a regular basis, but we're still waiting for sort of final the final regulations on that from the province, from the various departments of the province. Once we have that, once we put our plan in place, we'll share that with council. We'll look for feedback. As you can appreciate, this has to happen before phase 5, which is October 4th. So we're waiting for information, putting it together, and we'll share with council as soon as we can.
Great, thank you.
Councillor McDougall.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Gordy, maybe Terry, since he's the topic up. I'm concerned also with what Deputy Mayor Macquarie brought up. What you just said there, Terry, kind of it disturbs me a little, because are we expecting minor hockey to start checking for vaccinations? Are we expecting the Kayleys on Tuesday night to start checking for them? I mean, I know it's a provincial thing that's got to be done, but I mean, I think responsibility has to go with the Civic Center, doesn't it? If we don't let them in the door to begin with, then they don't get to these positions. And I have a couple more questions for Gordy while I got him, but maybe you can answer that.
No, so as I mentioned, Councillor, we're working through this. So and you're right. So there's there's events that are put on by volunteers. There's events that are put on by any number of people. This is a very busy building, and so we are sorting through all of that. And we will be sharing that with council and looking for your feedback and as to how we implement that. And we're looking at all aspects of that. So there'll be more information to follow. And we understand your concerns, and we share the same concerns.
Okay, thank you very much. And to Gordy, Gordy, I got a couple of questions this week on RVs and bikes and that. Do we still put them in the old arena?
We do, yes.
And who do we contact there, Gordy, for that?
Myself or Robert.
Okay, and one more thing. I was asked, and I want to just congratulate you on this. I was asked on the weekend, a citizen asked me to if they could get a tape from you, and I said, well, maybe if it were nice to Gordy, you might be able to get one. And I heard you put it on his step, and I appreciate that, and he appreciates that. So just want to thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome.
Any other questions at this time for Gordy? Okay. Well, so hearing none, just thanks again, Gordy, for your report. And maybe, I guess, if you need me as chair of the Accessibility Committee, just to go over setting a date for our next meeting, just reach out anytime.
Certainly. Thank you, Your Worship.
You're welcome. Back over to you, Terry, for I guess the strategic priorities edition. So I think that Deputy Mayor had added those.
Yes, Your Worship. Thank you. So I'll just do a short update on strategic plans. So really, there's 3 strategic plans that we've either initiated, that we're sponsoring, or that we're partnering on. One is on waterfront development, that we've had a lot of discussion and community consultation on. The other one is Marine Innovation Center, and the study and strategic planning on that. And the third one is on port marketing, that we're one of the sponsors on. Those three studies and plans are being conducted by the same consultant. They're all at 92 to 95%. I'll mention that there's been a number of things. This has been a long process, much longer than we had anticipated. But one of the parts of that is we've been in COVID and the difficulties of trying to deal with consulting with people and restrictions around that. But more so because of the length of time, things have changed. So as an example, we know with Waterfront, we had a concerted effort to move with a Waterfront Advisory Committee and some excellent work on there, and working around a theme, identifying the theme of wind. We just heard a presentation on wind energy from Kevin and Ian, and really we're working with two developers on that area. And really, wind is the windmills and the energy from wind, but there's also the products from that energy, and that's green hydrogen and ammonia, and all of the industry that goes along with that. So the part of the issue, we've identified wind in the waterfront in our planning with the Waterfront Advisory, but Marine Innovation Center, port marketing. And really solidifying what that means for the waterfront has not really been completed. So as we're at that 92, 95%, I think we'd be remiss if we don't look at adding that. And if we listen to that presentation, is really some of the things that we brought up before. It's just sort of signaling the industry through those plans that we're open for business, and that we're promoting wind energy and products from wind energy. We want to highlight key resources from that. And then we talked about advocating for regulatory approval. Sort of the Brizo energy, which we've talked about a number of times, is deep water offshore. It's not really confined by Nova Scotia Regulatory Authority, but other major projects could be. And so we're really at a point now where we haven't finished these studies. But I think it's a point. We're at a point where we can at least get this new emerging industry included in actually three of those initiatives. So meeting next week with the stakeholders to those three plans, and with phase 5 occurring on October 4th. There's plans being made for community consultation on all of those parts, starting as we open up in next month. So that's where we're at, but I'd certainly take any questions.
Thank you very much, Terry. Any questions with regard to that update on strategic priorities? Okay, well, thanks, Terry. And I guess as things progress, maybe we'll continue to keep council up to date with our committee of the whole meetings. And under other business, I just wanted to make a note that the gender affirming care in Nova Scotia was kind of a request for support that came forward, and it would have been throughout the summer months. We were recessed at the time, and the intention for that group was to look for support in advance of the provincial election. So it's not necessarily anything that's active as of now with regard to their timeline. I just wanted to make sure council had that information in case they do come forward in the future for, to look for council support. So that is just for your information only. The next item is signage. So Councillor McDougall had added this item. Councillor, could I hand things over to you for this item?
Okay, thank you, Your Worship. Your Worship, through you to council and to Terry. Over a year ago, we got a request from Mr. Farrell about signage, and he was wanting to put some signs up on his property, and we said we would deal with it, and I don't think we had an update. I called Mr. Bain today on another issue, and I forgot to ask him what happened, but in the meantime, I heard that they did bring it up at the Planning Commission meeting this week, and Councillor Coyne and Deputy Mayor McCrory are on that committee. Maybe Councillor Coyne or Deputy Mayor can give me some update on that if there's one. Thank you.
Councillor Coyne or Deputy Mayor McCrory, over to you.
Yeah, sure, I can jump in here. Through you, your worship, to Councillor McDougall. We have spoke about it. There seems to be a lot of issues in other municipalities with these signs, and they become overburdening and overbearing and causing distractions. So the committee will hopefully have something to bring forward after our next meeting to council. There's been some good points made for it and some good points made against it. And I guess once the committee makes their recommendations, then it'll be left to us to decide what we do with it. I hope that clears things up for you.
Not really, but thank you for that. Just a point, your worship. Our last council supported this endeavor, and I don't know where it went, but we did support it, and I'm just wondering if we are going to bring it up at our next regular meeting, or I mean, I know we have to go to a town public meeting or whatnot for and against, but I'm just wondering if that's going to be sooner than later.
I see that Terry has his speaker on. Terry, is there any information you can lend to Councillor McDougall's request, I guess, for an update?
Yeah, just an update, just a little more information from with the chair of planning, Jason. So there was a staff report that was completed by our planning staff on what's considered close proximity signage, which is what Councillor McDougall had referred to. So that staff report has made recommendations for changes to the municipal planning bylaw and our strategic plan around that. So the recommendation is there. It will be it can be distributed. There was general approval on that plan at our meeting. It will be distributed to council, and it could be considered. It actually can be considered for first reading at our public meeting if that's the desire of council. But we'll send that along with the recommendation from planning, and council can move from there. So it has progressed to the point where it's ready for council consideration.
Through your worship, that's great, Terry. Thank you.
Fantastic. I guess, is there any other information, perhaps if we don't have it this evening, to share with you, Councillor McDougall, that we can get for you through Eastern District Planning or what have you, Huey? Is there anything else that I guess we need to kind of get in terms of information on this item?
No, thank you, your worship. Thank you for that, your worship. And no, I can call John if I have to really get some information, but I appreciate that, and I'll be talking to Terry on it, I'm sure. I think Blaine has something to say here, maybe.
Yeah. Absolutely, and just to add to that, Councillor McDougall, that a lot of that information will be coming in a council package near you very soon. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor McCrory.
Yes, your worship. Yeah, when we did meet on the 16th, which was last Thursday, when we discussed this issue, the majority of the members that were at the planning committee were in support of putting forward the recommended amendments made by the Eastern District Planning Commission to allow for off-site signage. And my understanding was that we were going to bring it forward to council and for council to arrange for public meeting. And as Mr. Doyle has just said, I guess that's something we would do at our public meeting in October. But certainly at that meeting from last week, the consensus, no, I wouldn't say the consensus, but the majority seemed to have, well, did support this amendment and did support the request of Mr. Farrell. So I guess Terry, maybe Terry and or Jason need to clarify with John Bain, but that was my understanding at the end of that meeting last Thursday.
Through you, Your Worship, just a little more clarification, and we'll check this, but and we don't have minutes prepared from that yet, but we will shortly. But I believe we have a motion.
Yes, I believe so.
So
Yeah.
what we'll do is so the process is first reading. First reading has to be at a public meeting, and first reading is really about advertising when the public meeting is. So there has to be a public meeting on any change in bylaw. And so what we'll do is we'll have first reading on October, on our October public meeting, and we'll set the date for public hearing. That's really what that's about. Unless there's change, unless council does not wish to proceed with public meeting. The other thing is, I mean, you do not have to move forward with changes to the bylaw at any point in the process either. So if council changes their mind, if there's issues that are brought up by the public, if there's issues that are brought up by the council or planners, then the decision on that can be deferred or it can be turned down. So it's just to start that process off, and that's all first reading is. So that document will be sent to you tomorrow.
Yeah. So
for your review.
So Terry, that was your understanding that there was a motion to support that going forward from that meeting?
That was certainly my understanding, and I could be wrong, but we'll and that's what I was going to report on. But I will confirm with Melissa, who's taking the minutes for that, and if not, then we'll make that correction.
So if I can just hop in here for a second, I'm just going through my notes from that meeting, and there was a motion put forward.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for that clarification. Is there any other lingering information or comments or questions on this agenda item? Okay, so that will. Sure, go ahead, Councillor.
Just a comment in kind of cheek and tongue. I hope that information wasn't for my benefit there, because I've been through many of these in the last 20 years.
Through you, Your Worship, I completely understand that. It was just for the benefit of many people on this call.
Thank you. That's just a joke, Terry.
Yeah, I know.
I do have one quick question, Terry. So in terms of the recipient of this request, is it will Eastern District Planning contact the entrepreneur with regard to this request in terms of explain the process, and just so that there kind of is an anticipation or an understanding of the process, and so that there is a definitive timeline in terms of having a decision ratified, whether through the public process or through council process. I'm just wondering if that's something Eastern District is going to do, or our planning committee, or if it's something that town staff will do.
So great question. So it is, the applicant is Mr. Farrell, and so the communication will happen with him, but I'd be happy to follow up with that, and if and I'm sure that planning will do that, but if not, I certainly will.
That's great, and then that way, he and his I guess partners will understand exactly what that timeline and process looks like, and hopefully by the time we have our next public meeting, we'll have that information in our packages to review and start that process. So thank you for adding that to the agenda, Councillor McDougall. I guess our next item under other business is something that we kind of discussed certainly informally over the summer when we had some incidents of vandalism occur. I think multiple incidences of vandalism that occurred on town property, most recent being with regard to our fountain. And we did kind of have a brief email discussion about, is this time for a conversation with regard to the installation of security cameras With the support of council to bring that idea forward, I would ask for council to give some feedback with regard to this idea. Councillor Coyne.
Through you, your worship, I strongly believe it's time for some security cameras. My only concern with the security cameras, and I've brought this up a couple of times with Terry for sure, and possibly yourself, is I just wonder what we're allowed to have for security cameras around the splash pad and the washrooms at the park. I would be careful. I'd like to know for sure what we're allowed to have there. That's my only concern with any of the security cameras put in place. The vandalism was high this year, and for no reason really. So yeah, I think we need to try to find a way to deter the vandalism, because the town is looking good and we want to keep it that way. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Coyne. Councillor McIver.
Yes, your worship. I think this was the second incident that happened at the fountain. Am I correct? I believe.
For you, your worship, we replaced. We've had two incidents, serious incidents of vandalism to the fountain itself, and we've had other instances at that park as well as the playground.
Yeah, so I agree that we should put security cameras in certain places, and as Councillor Coyne was saying about the playground, I don't think that's an issue either, but we should work on a policy for security cameras. I don't know if there is one for the Civic Center because there's a lot of cameras there, but I know at NSCC we have cameras everywhere. You know where you're going and where you've been, but the cameras are only used by security, and the only time that the cameras are looked at is you have to go through a procedure. There has to be like an incident where you can go back in time and have security look at them with the proper personnel. And the other thing is, if we are going to price out cameras, we should price out good ones with good resolution. We have a lot of cameras around that if we do have incidents, hard to make out the individual's face or anything like that because of the resolutions or the pixels. So high-end cameras are really good where they can really get the features so that we can correct the problems that we're having. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McIver. Deputy Mayor McCrory.
Your worship, no, I have no comment. The comments have already been made. I have nothing else to add.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor McDougall.
Yes, your worship, I have no comment either, but I will support it. I do support that.
Okay, and Gordy, is there anything you kind of wanted to add to the conversation? And I'm not sure if this idea had been expressed in the past, or if you have any thoughts around that you could offer council.
Sure, your worship. I'd be glad to. We had looked at with some other vandalism that occurred in the park, in the washrooms that over the years, we had looked at the possibility of adding cameras. It was never really followed through on, like, to have them installed. But this summer seems to be worse than any. We've had plants stolen, we've had washrooms damaged, we had our fountain 2 years ago. We had some theft at our fountain, and this year we had damage at our fountain, and we had multiple trees vandalized throughout the town. So I did go ahead and get a quotation for a system for the playground, and I can share that with council if they'd like, and your worship. It's a 4-camera system, and it's probably mid-range quality. There's a couple of the systems that are some businesses in town that I went to have a look at, and it's pretty good. It's pretty good resolution. I understand what Mark's saying. it's not good having no sense having a camera if they're not gonna show us what we need to see when the time comes. So, but this 4-camera system could be, it's a good application for the park setting, and it would be a good application for the fountain setting. So we could, for that price point, we could probably put a couple around where we're experiencing the most of our vandalism. And I must say though, once the word is out that there's actual working cameras on these locations, the youth and the people that frequent our civic center over the last 17 years, they know where the cameras are, and it's really been a deterrent for, we've had very minimal issues at that building. So it's probably worth the investment.
That's a great point, Gordy. And anybody who walks into our Civic Center definitely comments on the great shape that the building's in, and it's still in many ways looks like it's in brand new condition. And part of the reason for that is not only taking care of the building, but also having those security cameras and it acting as such a great deterrent for any kind of vandalism. So I mean, that's an excellent point. I think that there obviously is a desire and a support for council to continue to pursue this, and any information you're able to discover or any information you have currently or any new quotes that you can get, please go ahead and share with council, or Terry can share it with council.
Yeah.
And we can definitely move this forward. We put an awful lot of time, dedicated volunteerism, investment in certainly in our Destination Reeve Street project, in our trail systems, in beautification in parks and recreation, and we want to make sure that that investment is protected over the long term. And having security, I think, is part of that price point, and part of kind of making sure that we are protecting our investment. And we definitely don't want to be investing in our town and just constantly fall victim to vandalism. So that is, I think that council will be supportive in determining what that plan is. And Mark made an excellent point with regard to policy around that security feature. So something that we can definitely work on in the future. And there may be some items that we can invest in, and maybe there's some bigger ticket items that we'll have to have discussions during budget time. So thank you very much for your feedback. Any other questions or comments from council? Okay. So we have our next item under other business is COVID-19 protocol. So I'll hand things back over to Terry.
Thank you, Your Worship. So we've had some discussions on this already as a result of questions brought forward during the Parks and Recreation presentation. So I'll just confirm just a few points. So we are putting protocols together now. We are waiting for information. And the other thing that we're doing is we are in communication, and we continue to be in communication with our major users of the facilities, including minor hockey, and the organizations that lease our facility, and other major users. So we are getting feedback on that. We will be waiting for some more information from council. As soon as we have it all together, we'll provide the information that we have in summary form from the province, and our protocol in simple terms, and it handed to council for your review and comment. So that's that item on the agenda, Your Worship.
Thank you, Terry, and I know council will look forward to getting, I guess, the more information with regard to protocols, and we'll certainly provide feedback when that time comes. Thank you for that update. Any questions or comments, I guess, with regard to that item from council? Okay, we'll move on to our final item under other business, which is public committee of the whole and advisory committee meetings for in-person, and I'll hand things over to Terry for that item as well.
Yes, sure. Thank you, Your Worship. So I thought I'd put this forward. We're moving into phase 5, which is sort of the reopening and the elimination of maximum sizes of assemblies and other restrictions, at the same time putting vaccination restrictions in place. I was just looking for feedback from council, whether you wish to resume public meetings, committee of whole, and advisory meetings in person. So Your Worship, I'm just asking for some feedback.
Thank you, Terry. So I see Councillor Coyne, you have your speaker on, so we'll go with you first.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you to Terry. Terry, right now, I think that until we see what phase 5 is actually going to be, it might be best to wait. And I'm a person who want to get back into the in-person meetings, but just for the safety and really it's the unknown that makes me a little bit nervous right now. Is we don't know what phase 5 is really going to look like. So I think this might be a good discussion for this time next month, once we get some direction from the province.
Okay, what's the thoughts of council with regard to that?
Your Worship, I agree.
Okay, so Deputy Mayor McCrory, and then we'll go over to Councillor McDougall.
No, Your Worship, I was just saying I agree with comments made by Councillor Coyne.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So Councillor McDougall?
Yes, Your Worship, through you, and I know Jason is just chopping at the bits to get in-person meetings, and and the last time we discussed this we were pretty close to doing it, but I'm glad we didn't, and I'm glad that Jason just said what he did, and I certainly agree with it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor McDougall. Councillor McIver.
Yes, Your Worship, through you. I certainly agree with Councillor Coyne, what he said, that it'd be nice to get back to the personal meetings, but question, did you attend any personal meetings in council yet, Jason?
Almost. We had 2 people show up to one, so we didn't even have quorum in person, but almost.
Right, that's what I thought, and I do agree that we should visit it in November or in October.
You had to swear it in, Jay. Jay, you had the swearing in ceremonies.
Yes, this is very true, Huey. Yeah.
I feel like Councillor McDougall might still be bitter about that happening. He's still talking about it. So that is a great suggestion. Thank you, and council seems supportive. So we will, I guess, keep this as an item, and we will discuss this at our October committee of the whole. And then by that time, I'll have a little bit more information and know a little bit more about the timeline around phase 5 reopening. Thank you. So we are very much near our 9:30 cutoff time. It's been a very long stint, lots of information. So and just for council's benefit, we already dealt with our addition on Cio Reports. So we will now look at our public meeting of October 5th. Is part of our future meetings, as well as committee of the whole on October 19th. And I do not want to belabor this next call for a motion to adjourn.
Moved.
Oh, that. I've never seen such engagement. I would feel like that was a complete tie between all 4 of you. So we'll go with Deputy Mayor McCrory making the motion and seconded by Councillor Coyne. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Contrary minded. Okay, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you all so much, and members of the gallery, for your time.
Good night, everyone.
Speaking with us. Thank you.